What's up guys, I'm Player2Jade and this is Affairs of the Court, Choice of Romance. I've actually played this before on this channel, but I unfortunately had to cut most of it out because most of the footage actually got corrupted. So I'm going to actually start over from the beginning. Hopefully this time it goes a little bit better. Anyway, I'm very sorry for the very long delay between videos. We recently moved from our old apartment into a new one. I originally was meant to move in on an earlier date in the month, but unfortunately there was some mix-up, and we ended up moving in a lot further along in the month than I would have liked, and I only recently was able to actually get at my setup to, well, set it up. But I'm back, and I'm gonna start recording, hopefully at least once a day, if I can. If not, at least twice a week. And, before I start the actual gameplay, I want to give a big thank you to Cody's channel, who is our first commenting subscriber. So thank you so much, Cody, for leaving your very nice comments. It's really nice to hear back from the community. Thank you so much. Okay, let's get started, shall we? Part 1. Choice of Romance. A high-pitched shriek splits the sweltering summer air. Help! Oh, help! Help! Your youngest sister, Clara, skids to a stop in front of you. Francisco and I were playing in the barn, she sobs. He was showing me spells, and he set the hay on fire, and now... A breath of wind springs up, and the acrid scent of smoke reaches your nostrils. The barn is some ways away from your parents' villa and the vineyards. There's that. But it is full of hay for feeding the horses, and hay catches fire so fast. It would be so easy for the wooden barn to burn down to the ground. The smell of smoke grows stronger the closer you get. By the time you reach the barnyard, your throat and eyes are stinging. You can't see flames from the yard, but as you approach the door, you can feel their heat. Out of the corner of your eye, you see the grooms running towards you. Then you reach the barn door and look inside. Your 7-year-old brother Francisco, face white with terror, is backed up against the barn's far wall, surrounded by leaping flames. Now, what are we going to do? Are we going to rush inside the barn, grab some water, or do we use our magic? I like to use magic, so I'm going to go with magic. Your family, like most noble families of Iberia, has magical talent. Unfortunately, you are death mages. Death magic is very useful in combat, but it tends towards firebolts and so forth. In other words, it is better at starting fires than at putting them out. Francisco almost certainly started this one with a firebolt gone wrong. But then, an idea occurs to you. You run around to the back of the barn and, summoning all your concentration, you throw a firebolt at the back of it. A hole explodes in the wood. You run towards the hole and it is like running towards an oven. The fire within is hotter and higher every second. But you've provided Francisco with an escape opportunity. And he stumbles towards it just as you get there. You grab him and pull him to safety. The grooms have arrived by then, and you hear the head groom shouting orders at the other two. They start carrying water from the well nearby to put out the fire. You hear shouting, and it seems that Clara succeeded in waking the household. Here they all are. Your mother and father and siblings and most of the servants. Your father takes charge of the situation, and under his management, the fire is quickly put out. Your mother cries, alternately praising you for your clever use of magic and berating Francisco for stupidity. When the excitement is over, the entire family returns to the house. You walk through the vineyards, through the courtyards, and towards your family's somewhat shabby villa. The villa is old and well constructed, but not as well kept as it might be. Underneath the trellis of bright flowers, for instance, the lintel could really use painting. But the family simply does not have the money to keep up appearances as they should be kept. Your great-grandfather was a conde, and your great-aunt was a condesa. And you have a second cousin or something who is a condesa now, but your father is only an hidalgo, a younger member of the noble house. He has the title Don for courtesy, and he has a fine house in the country. But he doesn't have anything else. Not much money and no power. Just the house and the family name. And so, you don't have anything else either as you approach your 16th birthday, when you officially come of age. Far away in the capital city of Orovia, things are happening. Their life mages and death mages study to advance their art. Their young men and young women enjoy masks and balls and hunts and jousts. There are wise and devious advisors lurking at the edges of the monarch's glittering court. Perhaps it is not quite true that nothing ever happens here. Now that something has, are you feeling glad that life here is usually calm and kind of dull? I'm gonna go with no, not at all, and that we'd like more excitement, because I feel like she should be an adventurous person. Okay. I rather suspect some more excitement is waiting in your future. Before we go any further, you are your parents' eldest child, but are you an eldest daughter or an eldest son? Last time I went with daughter, and it led to some really fucking cool stuff, but I don't know. I really want you guys to to hear the ending that I got. But on the other hand, man, I don't know. I'm gonna go with daughter. But I'm not gonna make the same choices. I'm going to see what would have happened if I had chosen a little bit differently. And you know, you guys can go explore the other choices because there are so many choices. So many choices, and it's so cool. Okay, let's go. We're going with Violeta because screw it. Y de Flores because screw it. Okay. And what sorts of things are you good at, Doña Violeta? Like all young people of your class, you've been well trained in the social graces. You can dance, you can make polite conversation, play a little music, ride in a hunt, and you have at least a basic understanding of magic. The ancient noble houses of Iberia are all mage houses. Members of a life mage family are born with the ability to make plants grow, to heal the sick and injured, to calm those who are agitated. Members of a death mage family are born with the ability to throw fire bolts at enemies in battle, to kindle flame and heat metal. But like anything else, much study and practice is required if mages wish to excel. You know at least a little magic. Whether or not you studied is seriously up to you. Tell us about yourself, Doña Violeta. What sort of person are you? What did you spend your spare hours studying when you were younger? Okay, let's see. Last time, I wanted to be very good at manipulating things, but I also wanted to have an impact in politics. I'm gonna go with well-read in history and literature. Your mother calls you the family. What is my second most notable quality? I'm going to go with the magery, because last time I learned how to read people, but I feel like the magery will be really helpful. What is my greatest weakness? We'll go with socially awkward. Yeah. Because we want... No. We'll go with subtle as being our weakness. We'll see. We'll go with that. As you are about to enter the house, a bright purple butterfly flits across your path. Red and blue and yellow ones are common, but purple ones are rare. They bring good luck, so the saying goes, and since it crossed your path, it can only be good luck for you. The butterfly will go and grant you a wish if you wish quickly. What are you wishing for? True love? No. An adventure? Chance to do something splendid, something that will change the world. That's always going to be my go-to. A few days meander past. Nothing of note occurs except for the arrival of your uncle Pedro and your aunt Leonor for your coming-of-age ball. Your uncle is in fact financing the ball, with money gained from a recent successful campaign abroad. Or you wouldn't be having one at all. Your parents certainly could never afford it. Finally, your birthday arrives. Downstairs, your mother and father await the guests, talking with your uncle and aunt. Up in your pleasant but plainly furnished bedroom, your 14-year-old sister Magdalena helps you dress for the party. Chattering without a pause for breath, Magdalena finishes tying all your laces. There, she says, and now you can look. You turn to look at yourself in the glass. A very fine mirror indeed. One of the few remnants of your family's former glory. You look splendid, Magdalena declares, and indeed you are quite pleased with what you see reflected. The rich color of your gown complements your... What would you like to specify the color of your hair? I'm gonna go with black because, I like black. I have purple hair personally, but it used to be black. And your eyes? Fuck me. Blue, green, gray, hazel, brown, black, or no preference. I like green. I like the black hair and the green eye combination. You look at yourself in the mirror, admiring your new gown. It is made of silk, in a rich purple shade, that allows your thick black hair to be shown to best advantage, and edged with ribbon and lace that perfectly set off your green eyes. Your mother has loaned you her wedding jewels, and they wink around your throat and in your hair. You feel like you have suddenly changed into someone completely different. Magdalena claps her hands in delight. Come on, Violeta, I can hear the guests arriving. It's time to go downstairs. You stand with your mother and father, receiving guests and graciously accepting their best wishes. The guests are mostly families from nearby estates, plus a few friends from your parents from farther away. Everyone looks most splendid, dressed in formal coats and beautiful gowns in a rainbow of colors. Everyone has a smile for you. Some of the adults look at you appraisingly, only to be expected now that you are considered of marriageable age. And many of the youngsters your age try to flirt. You flirt back, but only a little, since your mother and Aunt Leonora are standing nearby. By the way, are you flirting with the young men or the young women? Why not both? I mean, I can't pick both, but I would love to pick both. I'm gonna go with the young men because I know there's gonna be... Oh. If I go with the women... But if I go with the men... If I go with the men, I have more chance of influencing court influencing court. Because generally courts are male dominated. But if I go with the women, I can get into cahoots with the queen. I'm gonna go with the young men. Since I'm trying to get back to a similar part where I was before and then diverge. There are many young, handsome men to flirt with. You stand in the receiving line for what seems to be hours. Behind you, the guests circulate and talk. Snippets of gossip drift through your ears. Did you hear about Don Alonso's youngest? Foolish girl. She turned down a most advantageous proposal last year, and it was her 3rd season at court. What does she think to do now? She can't possibly afford a proposal to anyone. Her parents cannot afford to set her up in her own household. It is the way of things. One either courts or is courted. A youngster of 16 or so is courted, generally by a well-established adult of 25 or 30. Among the nobility, an eldest child is likely to have his or her own household, and seek to bring a wife or husband into it. Younger children are courted by others. There are exceptions, of course. Wealthy parents may be able to provide for all their children with sufficient inheritance to set up households. In poverty-stricken families, like yours, cannot even do it for their eldest. I heard that she turned down that proposal because she had hopes of Doña Beatriz offering for her. Foolish indeed. Doña Beatriz has no money to support a wife. I heard that Beatriz's sister Eugenia is having a love affair with Don Carlos de Vargas. With Don Carlos? But he is a life mage, and she is a death mage. How shocking! That too is the way of the world. There are death mage families and life mage families. One tends to marry within one set. Except for the king, of course. King Augustine, like all monarchs of Iberia, has married across mage lines. He is a death mage, and his queen consort a life mage. This means their children are more likely to be life mages, and so a life mage will succeed a death mage to the throne. This has always been the way of the things. Of course, it is only the way of things if the king and queen consort succeed in producing an heir. I heard their majesties have lost another unborn child. You hear another thread of gossip start. How dreadful. It is dreadful. Their Majesties have only the one child, and she is a death mage. She cannot succeed to the throne. I heard that the king has commanded young Tomás de Reyes to be brought to court. Aunt Leonor clears her throat and changes the subject, reminding the speaker that there are youngsters listening. At last, your duties in the receiving line end. Now what? I shall go and dance. No, fuck you. I see a group gossiping in the corner. I shall go and see if I can hear about this Tomás de Reyes. There is another group who appear to be discussing magic and other studies. I shall go and join them. I would rather do that than dance or gossip. See, this is where it gets tricky. I'm gonna go with learning about Tomás de Reyes, because that sounds interesting. Doesn't matter either way. You've only taken the first step when your uncle's voice booms out, calling for everyone's attention. I wish to propose a toast in honor of my niece's birthday. There's a smattering of applause, and goblets are raised. And I wish to make an announcement, Uncle Pedro continues. He pauses to be sure he has the intention of the entire room. And then he says, I have been so fortunate as to receive the favor of our most gracious king. In recognition of my service abroad, he has awarded me with a suite of rooms in the palace, and given me permission to bring my niece Violeta to court when the season starts in the autumn. Violeta, you shall have a proper season after all. I can manage a season's worth of gowns, he adds the following morning over breakfast, when it's just the family again. Not more than that, and you won't be able to return next year if you don't manage to find a spouse this year. But 4 months ought to be enough. I'm very grateful to you, uncle, you say. I'm only doing my best for the family, he replies somewhat pompously, and giving you the opportunity to do your best in turn. Depending on whose eyes you catch, you may be able to secure me a spot of influence commensurate with our family's honor, if not its recent fortunes. Even if you can't do that, says your father, a match with a suitor of means can improve our family's fortunes, and secure your own comfort, says your mother. And then after you are married, you can chaperone me when it is my turn to be presented at court, says Magdalena. What about you? What are you hoping to get out of this? Okay, let's see. Security, money, fun, never have any. True love, blah. Chance to influence important decisions. Let's go with that. Fairly said. In any case, you are off to the capital with your uncle and aunt as soon as your clothing can be made. From that point on, time seems to move faster than it ever has before. 2 months are scarcely enough time to put together the wardrobe you will require as a young lady of the court. Gowns, shoes, scarves, It should be hosiery, not hose and garters. Hosiery. Like pantyhose. Bejeweled trinkets, and almost before you know it, the day of your departure is at hand. You find yourself jolting over the roads with Uncle Pedro, Aunt Leonor, and Magdalena. For Magdalena is accompanying you. She is too young to be presented at court, of course. But your mother and Aunt Leonor thought it would be well for you to have a companion. And, well, for Magdalena to get an idea of how the court functions. You wouldn't have thought it would be much fun to be dragged along to the capital and once there spent most of the time under Aunt Leonor's supervision, and none at all enjoying court functions. But Magdalena seems delighted. She chatters excitedly the whole journey, hardly even stopping for a breath. How do you feel about having her along? I'm gonna say happy, because honestly I would love to have, someone I knew along. Without her, you might be totally alone. At least you will have someone to share your thoughts with. At any rate, the 4 of you arrive at the capital before you have gone completely deaf from Magdalena's chatter, swallow some supper, and fall into bed. Early in the morning of your first day at court, your aunt takes you to their Majesties' private rooms, where all ladies and gentlemen in waiting are assembled. A servant opens the door at your aunt's knock, and the first thing you see is a tall, middle-aged man addressing an assembly of ladies and gentlemen in waiting. He turns and regards you and Aunt Leonor with a raised eyebrow. Aunt Leonor curtsies. Don Benedicto, she says. May I present my niece, Violeta de Flores? Oh, Don Benedicto says. Yes, of course. Thank you, Doña Leonor. Your aunt curtsies again and leaves. Don Benedicto looks at you in a manner more praising than friendly. We are rehearsing a mask to be performed before the court this evening. It is somewhat late to be adding another part. Perhaps it would be best if you took a seat and observed. Oh, but Don Benedicto, says one young woman, Doña Teresa is feeling ill. Why could I not take her part, and Doña Violeta take mine? I am only being rescued, she adds, turning to you. It would not be difficult at all to learn. This proves to be an understatement. You soon discover that the role assigned to you consists of waiting atop a tower while battle rages beneath you. Eventually, the hero of the mask will fight his way to you and release you from imprisonment. Still, despite the small and boring nature of your part, you have to admit that the mask being rehearsed is very impressive indeed. You've seen them before, of course, even staged some small ones with your siblings. But the scale of this is immense in comparison. A masque is an after-dinner entertainment in which ladies and gentlemen disguise their identities and play assigned roles. In this case, the stories of a mage, Perseverance, who uses his magic to dispatch many evil creatures, greed, pride, gluttony, and so forth, with the aid of helpful sprites with names like Purity, Devotion, and Endurance. At the end, Perseverance reaches his true love, Virtue, and rescues Virtue from imprisonment. You think it is likely that the young woman who used to be playing Virtue considered it a significant advancement to take the part of Devotion instead. Devotion has many lines and participates in a dance of all the helpful sprites. You watch the rehearsal from atop your tower, admiring the construction of the tower and the care that has been put into the costume. If this is an everyday entertainment, your time at court will be dazzling indeed. At last, Perseverance succeeds in reaching you, and you rehearse the rescue. Perseverance is a nice-looking young man, although young is perhaps not quite the right word. You realize suddenly he's older than most of the ladies and gentlemen in waiting assembled here, in his mid-20s at least. As you climb down from the tower, your gown catches. You quickly pull it free, thankful it did not tear. We will have to be careful not to do that tonight, you say to Perseverance, trying to make conversation. Oh, it will not be we tonight, he says. You look at him in confusion. The king is taking the part of Perseverance tonight, but Don Benedicto says, except, of course, you must not recognize him. I must not... You can't imagine what they mean. The young man playing Perseverance explains. The king will come in disguise to play the part of Perseverance. We are all to behave as though we cannot tell it is he in disguise. The king does this on occasion, so that he can be certain his writing and dancing and magic is admired for its own sake, not merely out of deference to his title. You try to make sense of this. You try to make sense of this. So, we are to admire the performance of one playing Perseverance, and then feign surprise when he removes his mask? Exactly. This is unusual behavior, to say the least. What do you say? The king must know his courtiers recognize him. The young man playing Perseverance starts to reply, but Don Benedicto speaks sharply. Perhaps, perhaps not. In any case, Doña Violeta, you will do as you're told, and to resume your position. Embarrassed, you turn back to the tower. It's all right, Perseverance says low. We've all said something like that from time to time. It is a somewhat ridiculous game we all play. Best not to say that out loud, though. He smiles. I ought to have introduced myself before. Gabriel de Mendoza, at your service. Don Benedicto curtly orders the rehearsal to resume, and it does. You return to your room with time to change before the evening meal. You look at your wardrobe and consider the choices before you. You've been assigned a part that has you standing passively while others in the court draw attention to themselves. Is that good enough for you, or are you going to do something different? Do the role as instructed? Do the role as instructed but dress flashily? Or change the role? See, I don't want to change the role and look like a complete screw-up because that's just going to screw everyone over. But if I'm very quiet but I dress very brilliantly, at least it'll bring some attention to me. I mean, I'm probably going to go back and play this through with completely different answers. But this time, we are trying to accomplish a goal. A clever compromise position. You select the most form-fitting of your gowns, one that emphasizes all that is praiseworthy about your figure. At your throat, you knot a scarf the color of your green eyes, and you are most pleased by the effect you observe in the mirror. Your aunt looks at your choice of attire with some disapproval, but does not actually rebuke you. You walk down to the great hall between her and your uncle. You sit at a table in the great hall with the other young ladies and gentlemen in waiting, most of whose names you do not know. and enjoy a most delicious meal. Between courses, you look around. At the High King sit King Augustine and his consort Inez. The Queen Consort is a life mage from the formidable family de Aguilar. At the king's other side sits Luis de Vega, foremost advisor of the court. At the Queen Consort's other side sits Princess Juanita, the only living child of the king and his queen consort, Blarg. Unfortunately for all, she is a death mage like the king, and therefore cannot inherit the throne. But you notice that the eyes of both the king and the queen consort often go to a lower table, where sits a small boy whose resemblance to the king is unmistakable. This must be Tomás de Reyes, whom you have learned is the king's illegitimate life mage child. His illegitimacy makes it difficult for him to inherit, but it is noteworthy that the king sent for him to live at the court after the stillbirth of the most recent royal child. Between a death mage daughter and an illegitimate life mage son, the succession is a thorny issue. The king sends down a dish to Tomás de Reyes' table, and the queen consort's lips tighten just a little. At last the final course is cleared, and it is time to change for the performance. As you leave the great hall with the other young ladies and gentlemen in waiting, you see the Vega making a big production of seeking the king's attention. Your pardon, your majesty, but there is a matter of some urgency. The king rises. All of the ladies and gentlemen in waiting stop. The king waves a hand. Go on with the performance for the entertainment of the queen consort and the court. We will return when we are able. The queen consort's smile seems somewhat fixed. You don your mask and take the opportunity to remove the scarf knotted around your throat, and tug at the neck of your gown to display as much nickel cleavage as possible. You loosen your hair as well, allowing it to swirl over your shoulders. You take your place at the tower and strike a pose. The word is Perseverance and his companions enter. Perseverance is so obviously the king cannot see how anyone could ever pretend to be fooled. The king as Perseverance, light wooden practice or bang push laughing lightning. He strikes actual blows rather than merely touching his opponents. But at least the blows don't seem to be very hard. They probably only sting. He switches to magic to fight greed and wrath, using the wand presented to him by Fortitude, and likewise casts very small lightning bolts that seem only to sting. None of his opponents even touch him with magics or weapons. They only faint in the air around him. Those playing aids rather than opponents lavish far more attention upon him than upon Perseverance's companions. You cannot help but wonder if the king is really vain enough to believe they do not know who he is. At last, the king vanquishes the final obstacle, pride, and looks up at you. You stretch out your hand beseechingly as you have been instructed. When the Mendoza was playing this part, he only handed you down from the tower. But the king surprises you by reaching up and grasping you under the arms and swinging you down beside him. And then he whips off his mask in a grand gesture. Do you pretend to be surprised? I'm gonna go with yes and not get my head cut off, because I assume if I say no, I'm gonna get my head cut off. From the other players in the mask, and from everywhere else in the court, you hear impressively realistic gasps of surprise. You put your hand to your heart as if overcome. Oh, your majesty! 'Tis I, he says, and kisses your hand. His eyes run appraisingly up and down your figure, and then he reaches out and pulls off your mask. But yours is a face unknown. What is your name? Violeta de Flores, your majesty, you say, and make a deep curtsy. Ah, yes, of course, Don Pedro's niece. How does he know everyone? He smiles at you. Well, we have been most pleased to rescue you this evening, and we hope you will enjoy your time in our court. You have a most delightful time the rest of the evening. There are other performances, and in between you make the acquaintance of different people. The king granted you his attention, and now you have the attention of the rest of the court as well. You think that you catch the king looking at you now and then, and you are certain that the Mendoza is. Your aunt comes to you leading a plump, middle-aged man with a red face and expensive clothes. Violeta, she says, Don Carlos Torres most particularly desired to make your acquaintance. Don Carlos, my niece Violeta de Flores. I am enchanted, Torres says to you. You murmur something conventional in reply. The rest of the night passes in a blur. You ride the wave of exhilaration back to your room and tumble to sleep. A few days later, you attend a lavish banquet in honor of the newly arrived ambassador from Sara. Your aunt inspects your attire narrowly and pulls your collar up a little higher. It is very important that you be dressed respectably at an important function such as this. The honor of the House de Flores is at stake. You follow her and your uncle down the stairs and join the crowd milling about the great hall, sipping wine and waiting for the king and queen consort to enter with the ambassador. You stand for a moment in the doorway, watching the room. Good evening, Doña Violeta, a voice says at your elbow. You turn to see Carlos Torres. Great. He is again dressed in clothing that is obviously expensive but not flattering. He wipes his sweating red face with a silk handkerchief. Very warm in here, isn't it? But it doesn't seem to be troubling you. You look enchanting this evening. May I have the honor of escorting you? My niece would be delighted to have you as an escort, Aunt Leonor says meaningfully from your other side. Gross! You seem to have no other choice but to take Don Carlos's arm. He leads you in a promenade about the room. What do you do? Okay. I encourage his intentions? I don't want to disentangle myself either, but I mean, because that's rude. But the middle one just seems so... I'm just gonna go with the middle one. I'm not gonna encourage his attentions per se, I'm just... I don't know anything about you. Won't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Torres talks at length about himself. It seems he is a merchant who has made a substantial fortune and now, as you inferred, is in a position to marry. He makes a comment about having a gracious presence in his home, and it might have been a flattering comment from someone else, but it comes awkwardly from him. You can't tell if he is really lonely and just not good at paying compliments, or whether his motives in seeking a spouse are more practical. He has risen as high as he can on wealth alone, and needs to ally with a noble family to advance any further. It is probably a little of both. After a while, Torres asks if you would like a glass of wine. Ah, yes, thank you. He trundles off to secure it. You turn and find yourself face to face with Don Gabriel de Mendoza, who gives you a dazzling smile. Hola, Doña Violeta. Oh wait, that says hello. Hello, Doña Violeta. What a pleasure to see you again. He is holding 2 goblets of wine and extends one towards you. Would you like a drink? Ah, fuck it. Let's take the drink. De Mendoza smiles at you. I saw you with Torres. I can't imagine you like having someone so old and boring court you. I know it is how things are done, but things do not have to be done that way. Really, you say? Yes, really. I am not married. Did you not receive any offer when you were my age? I did. Many of them. But I turned them down. I won't play the game, and you don't have to either. You consider this. Now playing the game has put De Mendoza in a strange no-man's land, neither young enough to be courted or established enough to be able to afford a spouse. He cannot really mean to court you, not seriously. On the other hand, it is plain that he does like you. You are uncertain what his intentions might be. Before you can decide what to say, he says, Oops, here's Torres returning. I'd better be off. I look forward to seeing you later. He disappears into the crowd. Torres reaches you just as the herald announces the entry of their majesties and the ambassador. He escorts you to a table and sits beside you. Aunt Leonor beams at you from across the table. That's just gross. Come on. The food is delicious. The hall is full of a dazzling array of gorgeous clothes, and flashing jewels. I should have got some water. Jeez. Alas, Torres' conversation is not particularly interesting, and mostly directed towards Uncle Pedro. You are surprised when a servant pauses beside you and offers you a plate of fresh fruits shaped to look like flowers. From His Majesty, the servant murmurs. You look towards the high table and find the king watching you. Your eyes meet, and he inclines his head slightly with a smile. You turn and help yourself to the fruit, heart fluttering. When you look around the table, you see that Torres does not appear to have noticed, but Uncle Pedro is smiling and Aunt Leonor is frowning. It is not so uncommon for a young lady or gentleman recently come to court to receive the attention of His Majesty the King. The king is known to frequently take lovers, both male and female. Tomás de Reyes is the product of one such liaison, with a young man who has since died. A particularly valuable life mage is the spell... A particularly valuable life mage spell is the one that allows 2 women or 2 men to become the blood parents of a child. One assumes the king must have been quite taken to Thomas's other parent to have participated in this ritual. But still, it is something thrilling to know yourself the one who has caught the king's eye. The banquet goes until very late. You sleep in the next morning, and the whole family is content to let you recover, well aware of how late you returned the night before. The whole family, that is, except for Magdalena, who bursts into your bedchamber. Get up, Violetta, it's so exciting! The king himself has sent you a bouquet of flowers and an invitation to join him at the tourney tomorrow. The king! Oh, and de Mendoza sent you a poem extolling your virtues. He wants to accompany you to some sort of musical event, a chamber recital or some such. So if you are wanting in poetry and music, you can have that too. Oh, Violetta, that's all so exciting. I'm going to leave it here. We'll decide, you know, next time. Bye bye! Oh, that was rude. Please like, comment, subscribe. You know the drill. I'll see y'all next time. Bye bye!